Hello, everybody, and indeed, welcome to another edition of Who's Your Hometown Heroes. I'm Tony Val. Today, my guest is Veronica Napier. She is the founder and CEO of Stepping Stones Behavioral Solutions, and she is the managing real estate broker at Veronica Napier Realty. Yes, a very busy and very skilled entrepreneur right here in Indianapolis. Please now enjoy my conversation with Veronica Napier. Who's Your Hometown Heroes is sponsored by Prometheus Consulting. Prometheus is Indy's most trusted name in outsourced IT support. Veronica, thanks so much for joining me today.
No problem. Happy to be here.
Excellent. Well, here's where I wanted to start. I know we're going to get into Stepping Stones Behavioral Solutions, but in my opportunity to visit with you before recording, I learned some very interesting things about your background. I wanted to start with a bit of your, origin story. Can you talk about how entrepreneurialism was part of your childhood and kind of how that has helped make you who you are today?
Absolutely. So I was actually raised by two entrepreneurs as well as my aunt and uncle. They're both entrepreneurs as well. So I come from a long line of people that just come up with ideas and invest in those ideas. So my dad actually has a construction company, and my mother, she was a part of so many different sales companies coming up. As a 90s kid, I think everybody's mom probably sold Avon or Mary Kay or some type of cosmetic. The multi-level marketing was super hot back then. And then she also, when I was a teenager, she had a flower shop at the Fort Bend on the military base. So she actually used to be in the military. And then as I got a little bit older, she had opened up her own flower shop. And then my aunt and my uncle, my aunt again has been in sales. She's in insurance and just does a slew of things. And my uncle has a roofing company. So I was, no stranger to entrepreneurship.
Yeah, so literally surrounded, it sounds like. So, so extrapolating then, I'm assuming as you were kind of starting your life and your career, I would bet that you didn't really think in terms, maybe ever in terms of like having a traditional career, working for someone else, climbing the ladder, etc.
I would say I've always been taught to be humble. So the best way to learn how to run a business is by joining another business and kind of growing from the bottom and moving your way to the top. At some point on the climb, you start realizing, hey, I can do this myself. But I definitely don't think that I ever thought to myself, I don't want to work for someone else. I just thought maybe I can do this too, which I think is a good mindset to have, definitely staying humble and learning from others so you don't bump your head as hard. Because you're definitely gonna bump your head.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'd be curious to hear your opinion. For myself as an entrepreneur, I kind of have come to the conclusion that what makes us different is we're just kind of willing to, I guess, take responsibility, to step up to the plate, take responsibility, and put ourselves in a situation where we have no one else to turn to. Do you kind of feel the same way? Is that what differentiates normies from entrepreneurs?
Yeah, I would definitely say so. I just spoke on this during another interview, and I feel that entrepreneurs in general definitely have a sense of pride in their work. It comes with zero excuse. I think that's what kind of differentiates someone who is like a W-2 employee versus, that contractor, that business owner. We definitely take ownership, and we will definitely say, I am sorry, even if it's something that we did not directly do, it's something that our employees did. We have no problem taking responsibility and fixing the situation as well.
Yes, absolutely. I don't know about you, Veronica, but I kind of like there's a simplicity to kind of owning everything. If you kind of run the place, then there's no one else to turn to, and everything is your fault, essentially.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly. That's very true. It's very true.
yeah. So speaking of running the place, I would be remiss if I interviewed you and didn't really focus on Stepping Stones Behavioral Solutions. From what I can tell of your background and what I know of you, this is definitely your crown jewel so far in your life. And it seems like you've really touched on something very powerful for families who are dealing with autism. So what can you tell me about how Stepping Stones started, and just kind of tell me that story?
Yeah, well, I I have a very interesting journey. I started in radio and television while I was in elementary school. So that's what I studied all the way throughout college. And I thought that one day I would be a news reporter or have my own television show. But at that time, there was backpack journalism was a thing. And I think it probably still is a thing. And it just wasn't going to be mine. So I had to start thinking, what else can I do? So I had a double minor in Spanish and computer science. So I was thinking software architecture. I don't know. And then while I was in school, I went to beauty school too to help, pay some of the bills. So I ended up opening up my own hair salon while going to school at Ball State. But as I was, washing people's hair, styling their hair and things like that, I started noticing that people were coming in kind of receiving more like counselor sessions. Like people would come in to just be like, I needed to give you an update on my life. Just wash my hair. Don't blow dry it or anything. And then walk out with her hair sopping wet. And I was like, wait, that wasn't a hair appointment. That was more of a counseling session. And I got paid like $7 to wash hair. This is kind of silly. So I started thinking to myself, I need to go back to school to get my master's in counseling since I was finished with my undergrad at the time. And, I was in school. I thought I was going to be a psychologist. And I wanted to get some type of experience in the psychology field. So my friend was a board certified behavior analyst, which is what I am today. And she said, get a job at an ABA company. So I did, started working with this awesome patient. He was 12 years old. He was aggressive. And I actually toilet trained him within I think a week or two of starting working with him. That was just life changing for me. So I saw how quickly his behaviors could change and how I could teach him some different skills. And I just fell in love with the field. So I changed my focus from that counseling, psychological branch of this big tree of psychology and focused it more on applied behavior analysis. And from that point, I worked for a couple of facilities throughout central Indiana. And I really just didn't really feel like I was at home. So once I passed my BCBA, I said, you know what, I have experience doing behavior consulting with the Medicaid waiver. And then I had the experience of in-home as well as clinic-based ABA and some school stuff too. And I just said, you know what, I don't feel like I'm at home when I'm interviewing at all these places. So let me just take on one of my own clients, work with him. And I said, I'll just be the therapist as well as the BCBA. Because typically in our model, you have an RBT, or back in the day, it was just a behavior technician and a BCBA. And that's all you need really. But then I had a referral. So I had to hire another therapist in addition to myself. And it got a little daunting, doing your own billing, all the administrative stuff that takes to, implement ABA. So I realized I needed to take a step back from, the direct therapy all day and have other therapists working for me. So what started off as just 2 therapists doing home base and a couple of clients has led to going on 200 patients, today. So
Yeah, and multiple locations. That's really
yes,
amazing. In
yes,
multiple states, actually, if I'm correct.
yes. Actually, we
Wow,
just opened up our Mississippi location too. So it's been a fun journey.
amazing. Well, I would imagine, Veronica, that a parent who has a fresh diagnosis in one of their children of autism must be going through a real roller coaster of emotions. What would you say to parents who have just been kind of given this news about their child? What guidance would you have?
Well, I have a lot of patients, parents I've worked with in the past. And one of the things I know as a parent, that your child is different. By the time that you sought out a diagnosis, you definitely had some type of inkling that they were different in some way, shape, or form, whether that was the pediatrician that started noticing there was a few deficits when they're coming in for their wellness checks. That parent has known something may be different about this kiddo. even if it's their first child. That's, I think, parents that are the most shocked because they have no baseline to compare their child with autism to. But it's good to know what's going on. I think there's a sense of relief with the diagnosis. And immediately parents take to Google and start researching, what does this mean? Does this mean my child will forever be in special ed? What therapies, do I need to seek out for my child? And the state of Indiana actually is one of the best states to have a child with autism because there's so much support. We first have First Steps, which is available to a child who's not meeting deficits. So as soon as you go to your pediatrician, their child may already be enrolled in First Steps, but they are able to receive these services for free up until the age of 3. A child can be diagnosed as early as, I believe it's 18 months. And from that point, they immediately should start touring ABA facilities and looking for one that's, number one, close to their home. That could be on their way to work for convenience. But if they're willing to drive a little bit further, definitely seek out, ABA facilities, look at some of the reviews as well, and tour just to make sure their expectations are aligned with their child's needs. And also, too, some parents don't want to send their kids to clinics. They want that support in the school setting, or they want it in the home setting. So there's so many different options out there for parents, and there's a lot of different support groups as well. They're definitely not alone, and there's so many ABA facilities and resources that are going to be there to help them. Just definitely be patient because there are a lot of people who are dealing with the exact same thing, and their kids have been on waiting lists, and there's not waiting lists at every provider. So definitely research to be educated on the diagnosis. It's definitely not the end of the world, and there's so much support for a child on the spectrum.
Got it. Very helpful. So when a family enrolls with Stepping Stones, does that relationship then often last over years up until the child reaches adulthood, or what does that look like?
So autism is a spectrum. So it's this linear kind of forever line, right? So some people use the terminology of mild, moderate, severe. Back in the day, there was Aspergers. So there's just all types of words to describe this spectrum. But if a child is more mild on the spectrum, which means they basically have some different social deficits, maybe some type of sensory issue, those children typically will have support from the diagnosis until getting into the school setting. They may have a one-to-one in the school setting, and then eventually they'll graduate from having that one-to-one, and they'll be able just to have like their special ed resource room that they go down to every once in a while, maybe during a test. But then there's other patients where they may have to have help all throughout their life. So even with their diagnosis, teaching them skills such as grooming, functional living, toothbrushing, just all types of skills to make them as independent as possible. They may have ABA their entire lives, and then they graduate from, well, they don't really graduate, but typically by the age of 21, insurance does not pay for the one-to-one for ABA therapy, but there are other services through the Medicaid waiver. So they can get services such as IBI, as well as behavior consulting to come into the home setting. And then there's also placement for residents because there's a lot more group homes that are coming out. So that way they can be paired with other individuals at similar functional level, and they can work, live with them and still implement those skills they learned throughout being in ABA therapy as a child.
Got it. I'm curious, Veronica, to shift gears just a little bit. You're such an interesting interview, and I've been looking forward to this because not only do you have this great story, and you're providing a great service, but you're building an organization. You have this what seems to be you're on a really nice track, and I'm interested to hear from you. What advice would you give to someone who's just starting out? Maybe they have a couple of employees, maybe they have some sort of vision in their mind over time, but how would you mentor someone starting out that wants to move forward?
Great question. So one of the things I do, I actually am a business consultant, and a lot of my mentees have the human services companies. So some of them have ABA companies, some of them have that personal care agency. Some do something totally different, like technology. But one of my number one, the best advice that I would give anyone is get a mentor, someone who is doing it better than you. That way you have some type of resource where you can reach out. I definitely did not have that. So growing up in the ABA business owner world, I, did not know about billing. There's so many different resources out there just to help out with billing. And a lot of my mentees ask, at what point do I hire a team? So I think a lot of people want to know the steps of growth and when they should outsource. And there's power in outsourcing. I always say this, focus on what you're good at, which is for me, ABA, the clinical side, and then outsourcing some of those headaches that most business owners have, like billing, administration, HR. So a lot of those things can be outsourced in a fractional way. So definitely leaning on fractional CFOs, fractional CEOs, fractional HRs, companies, just until you get enough funding and a good support team internally. So definitely, let's see, like I said, mentorship, fractional services, and I think finding your niche too. So I think with ABA, I started off home based. Then I realized there was this huge need for clinic based, right? But in our field, I feel like it's very, very smart to keep your overhead low. And nowadays, having virtual offices, a lot of my team actually works from home, the administrative team, and we have a slew of BCBAs that are also virtual now. So definitely leaning more on technology to keep that overhead low is smart. It makes it convenient for employees as well as contractors to join your team, and it really extends your network.
Very cool. Very cool. I gather from your LinkedIn that you are a big believer in networking. And that's kind of been my experience too. I always like to talk to people who have already been where I want to go and, be able to pick their brains. Very, very helpful.
Absolutely.
Can you think of like a piece of advice that you've gotten along the way that really kind of sticks out for you as, oh, that was really good advice?
I would say the best advice I have received as of lately, or like an aha moment, was when I was attending a retreat in Baja California, and it's called the Modern Elder Academy. Absolutely loved it. And at the end, it was a round table, so to speak, of CEOs, business owners, and higher level executives. And one of the members there said, let it be easy. We spent a whole week kind of diving in and talking about just the perspective of, being this leader. And I think we sometimes complicate things, just as humans in general. I've always have said to myself, keep it simple. Let's think of the simplest, easiest way to get to a result. But letting things be easy, it was just such an aha moment for me. And oftentimes, there is a quick answer that you may have to say slowly, but there's always a simple solution. So let it be easy.
Really cool. Mine, and I talk about this every once in a while with my business partner. By the way, Veronica, my company Prometheus, we're about to have our 25-year anniversary in June.
Wow.
Unbelievable.
Congratulations. That's awesome.
It's unbelievable. But we got, when we were in business, maybe a year, we got a piece of advice actually from a competitor, the owner of that place. And he sold years and years ago, but he told us, be slow to hire and quick to fire. And maybe we remember that because it's almost poetic. It rhymes, but that is really, I think, proven out to be good advice. You can tell when someone's not working out. You just have a feeling. So better not beat
Yeah,
around the bush. Just kind of let's, rip off the Band-Aid. And
it's so true. It's so true. And I think that a lot of business owners, even managers, they're so scared of having a bad reputation. I'm friends with a lot of employees on social media and just seeing some of the posts from, some of my competitors' employees, they'll say things like, ooh, this business is always hiring. And they're like, that's a red flag. And sometimes, no, it's not a red flag. Sometimes it shows the power of evolution, and how you're saying, it's important to know when it's time to part ways, even if, it's not a mutual parting and you're like, hey, our business can be better with you gone. Thank you for your contribution, but it's time to go,
yeah,
and I think that you save a lot of time. Um, Sometimes a little bit of drama is also saved, and your reputation can be a little bit more intact. So definitely, I love that. Slow to hire, quick to fire. Awesome.
yes, absolutely. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on. I was excited to meet you. I think your story is very impressive, and just from one business owner to another, you know, keep on keeping on. It's going to be really fun to see kind of where you end up.
Thank you so much, Tony.